So even though this worksheet, this homework, the instructions say to write it in slope-intercept form, pretty much on all of them, it's not going to be like that on the test. On certain questions, I'll tell you write in point slope instead of slope-intercept, all right? Number one, you want to write this in slope-intercept form. Do they give you the slope? Yes. Do they give you a y-intercept? Yes. So you could plug it straight into y equals mx plus b. So my equation will be y equals 2x plus 0. But of course, you don't need that plus 0, so you could not even put it. If you want to put it, go ahead, but you don't have to. So there's the answer number one. Moving on, number two. So what do they give us here? Indirectly, they give us the what? The slope. Indirectly, because they're telling us that it's going to be parallel to this line, and this line has the slope 4, and that's all I care about. That my slope is parallel to that slope, which would mean, or parallel to that line, which would mean I have the same exact slope. What else do they give us? They give us a b value. The y-intercept is the b. So that's really easy to write in slope-intercept form. That's simply y equals 4x plus 4. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Number three. Indirectly, they give us the slope again. What is that slope? 4 or negative 4? Negative 4. Again, the word perpendicular implies opposite reciprocal slope values. So the slope of the line that they give us is 1/4. And if we want it to be opposite, you're going to put a negative, and reciprocal, you're going to have to flip this fraction, you have to flip it. So it's going to become negative 4 over 1, which you could just leave as negative 4. Okay, so indirectly, they give us a slope. Since they want us to write in y equals mx plus b, do they give us a b value? No. What do they give us? Points. They give us a point. Now, you guys might start jumping into point slope form because they indirectly gave you a slope and they give you a point. You might inappropriately jump into point slope form. But think about this. What is this coordinate? It's the origin. Isn't that on the y-axis? So they really do give you the y-intercept. The y-intercept of this guy is actually 0. I mean, think about it, guys. If I tell you your line passes through the point 0, 0. I mean, it doesn't matter if it passes like this or if it passes like that or if it kind of passes like that, kind of steep. But if it passes right there, then you technically know your b value. Your b value is 0. So slope-intercept form would be y equals mx plus b, but you don't need that 0. There's the answer. Let's jump to number 4. Number 4 says that our line is parallel to this line that they give us and has an x-intercept at 4. So what does parallel mean? They're indirectly giving us our what? Our slope. And what is our slope going to be? It's going to be the same exact slope as that guy, which is negative 3. That's right. Okay. Now they're also indirectly giving us what? What else? The y-intercept. They're giving us the x-intercept, so they're indirectly giving us a point. Okay. Now, sometimes I will say I'm giving you the y-intercept, and that'll just be your b value, and you'll be done. Y equals mx plus b. But it's an x-intercept, so you have to think about the location of that x-intercept, which is going to be the coordinate 4, 0. Okay. So it's a point 4, 0. And now that we know the point, and now that we know the slope, we might as well write it in point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. Let me repeat that. Y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. And when you use this, I recommend that you leave it with blank spots, right? Y minus y1, leave it blank, equals m, leave it blank, x minus x1, leave it blank. And plug in your values. Your y1 value is the y value of your coordinate, which is 0. So 0 goes right here. The m value is the slope. Negative 3, same slope as the other line because they're parallel. And x1 is the x value of your coordinate, which is 4. And when you start simplifying, y take away 0, simply y. And And when you start distributing, negative 3 times x is negative 3x, and negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. This would be your final answer that's in slope-intercept form. Now, the instructions to this whole worksheet says to rewrite it in slope-intercept form. That's why we changed it to slope-intercept form. However, on Friday's quiz, I might stop you right here. I might say leave it in point-slope form, and you would leave it like this. Okay? So be careful with the instructions. But the questions all come from either this worksheet or the notes or the previous worksheet on slope. Number 5, perpendicular. Right here, they're indirectly giving us a slope as well. What would our slope be? 2 over 1, perfect. Perpendicular means that our slope is going to be the opposite reciprocal of this guy.
Could I just put 2?
Yeah, so I would just put 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so you do change it to positive, and you take it and flip it, so it becomes positive 2 over 1. But the best way to write it is just 2, okay? So what else do they give us?
Point.
Give us a point. All right, so we know the point, x1, y1. So since we know a point and we know the slope, we might as well write it in point-slope form. Y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. So I'm going to keep writing it over and over until you guys absolutely have it memorized. And when you use it, leave it with blank spots. Y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. Plug in your y1 value, which is 3, your m value, which is 2, your x1 value, which is 2 as well. And if on the test I ask you to leave it in point-slope form, you would leave it exactly the way it looks right there. That would be your answer. But on this worksheet, they want us to change them all to slope-intercept. So let's do that. Let's distribute. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Bring down the equal sign, bring down the y, the take away the 3, and simply get rid of that 3 by adding 3 to both sides. Plus 3 there, plus 3 over there. Y equals 2x minus 1. That's your slope-intercept form equation. Moving on. Number 6. What are the 2 things that they give us? They straight up give us a slope. It's right here, negative 2/3. And what else do they give us? They give us the x-intercept, which is really what? A point, right? It's not the y-intercept, it's the x-intercept. So you have to, again, think, there's my xy plane, 1, 2, 3. I know that my line, whatever it is, it's going to cross right here, right? It might cross steep going down, or maybe really steep going down, or it might cross really steep going up. Actually, I know it's going to be 2/3, so it's going to be going like down 2 over 3, down 2 over 3. So my lines are going to look like this right through that value. But the important part is that we identify the actual location of that point, which is the point 3, 0. So now you could go point-slope form. Y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. The y1 value is 0. The m value is negative 2/3. And the x1 value is 3. Now on the instructions again, if I tell you to leave it in point-slope form, you'd be done. But right here, we're actually going to distribute to get rid of those parentheses. So we're going to do negative 2/3 times x. That's negative 2/3 x. Then go negative 2/3 times negative 3. Well, a negative times a negative is definitely a positive. And you could cancel the 3 with the 3. Or if you get confused with that, you could simply put it over 1 and then multiply 2 times 3 is 6, and then 3 times 1 is 3. So if you wanted to, on the side, you could say 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 1 is 3, and then think, what is 6 divided by 3? 6 divided by 3 is 2. And of course, we have the equal sign, and we have y take away 0, which is just y. So this is our slope-intercept form equation on number 6. Jumping to number 7. Nice. We want to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So on every single one of these, I need a slope and I need a y-intercept. It's really easy to find. What's the slope of this totally flat line? 0. Okay, so the slope is 0. How about the b value? Where does it cross the y-axis? Crosses right here at 2. Easy peasy. So when I say y equals mx plus b, you could write it like that, but that's kind of not as nice as you could write it. The final simplified best equation would be y equals 2. Again, because 0 times x, that's nothing. There are no x's, so you don't have to write the x. You could just say y equals 2. By the way, any flat line is simply going to be y equals a number. Any vertical line is simply going to be x equals a number. That's a review of Algebra 1. Anyways, let's go over here. What's the slope here? 3 over 2. So if you go up 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, up 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, yep, the slope is 3 over 2. And if you would have done from here all the way up here and all the way over, you'd get 6 over 4, which still reduces down to 3 over 2. So that's our slope. What's our b value? Negative 2 crosses at negative 2. So my slope-intercept form equation, y equals 3 halves x minus 2. That's my slope-intercept form equation of that line. Number 9. So they give you these points so you could kind of like find the slope formula, use the slope formula to find the slope, but why would you do that if you could just count, right? So what's the slope? What's the slope right here? 2/3, right? Go down 2 over 3, so negative 2 over 3. So you have to put negative. If you forget that negative, that'll be incorrect. And the b value is 1. So my slope-intercept form equation is y equals negative 2/3 x plus 1. You know what? That's too easy. You know what would be more interesting if I asked you to write this equation in point slope form. That'd be great. As a matter of fact, you know, I might do that on the test. All right, how would we write this in point slope form? Well, if I asked you point slope form, you definitely need a point. Do we have points? Yeah. Which ones? Let's go negative 3 and 3. Okay, and we also have the other one, but let's go with the first one from left to right. So let's use this one. And we also have the slope. We just counted. You go down 2 over 3. So we also have a slope. So if we had point slope form, how would we write it? Y minus 3 equals our m value, which is negative 2 over 3, times parentheses x minus negative 3. So the only thing you could do to this point slope form equation to make it look nicer is change the minus minus to plus plus. So this would be it right here. Yeah, that's more interesting. So I might do that instead of asking for, I will be asking for slope-intercept on a lot of them, but maybe on this one I'll ask for point slope. Front side's done. Let's flip it over to the back side. On the back side, number 10, they're asking us to write an equation in slope-intercept form. Again, the instructions to all of these, bless you, the instructions to all of these are to write it in slope-intercept form, but on the quiz Friday, I might ask you for point slope form. I will ask you certain questions for point slope form and certain questions for slope-intercept, so pay attention to the instructions. Number 10, the slope is negative 5, so they straight up give you that slope, and it passes through this point, x value, y value, 1, 1. So they give you a point, they give you a slope. Let's use the point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. The y1 is right there, equals m parentheses x minus x1. Again, when you use this, I recommend rewriting everything that's in black and leave everything else blank. So y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. And now it's safe to plug in your values. The y1 value is negative 8. The m value is negative 5. The x1 value is negative 3. And don't forget to change the minus minuses to plus plus. So we will have y plus 8 equals negative 5 parentheses x plus 3. So if on Friday's quiz I tell you write your equation in point slope form, this would be it. This is your answer. Okay? If I ask you point slope form. But right here we're going to continue on and change it to slope intercept to y equals mx plus b. So we need to get rid of those parentheses by distributing. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Bring down the equal sign. Bring down the y plus 8. And there's only one more thing to do. Get rid of that plus 8 by doing the opposite, minus 8. So minus 8 there, minus 8 over there. Your slope-intercept form equation is y equals negative 5x minus 23. So again, pay attention to the instructions on Friday. Not all of them are going to be this final answer. I might ask for the point slope form of the equation, which would be this one. Number 11. What do they give us? A slope and a point. So once again, we're going to use point slope form. And once again, let's rewrite what's in black and leave the rest blank. And now it's safe to plug in those values. The slope is 4/5. The y1 value is negative 3. The x1 value is 10. Change the minus minus to plus plus. And if I ask you for point slope form, you would be finished right here. But the instructions here say rewrite it in slope-intercept. So let's distribute. 4/5 times x is exactly that, 4/5 x. 4/5 times 10. If you're confused with that, put the 10 over 1, multiply the top with the top, and the bottom with the bottom. So 4 times 10 is 40, 5 times 1 is 5, so you have 40 over 5. And you could jot that down on the side if you want, 40 over 5. 40 divided by 5 is 8. So you're going to have a minus 8 right here. Equals y plus 3. Final step would be to subtract 3, and there's your slope-intercept form equation. Y equals the slope 4/5 x minus 11. Moving on. Number 12. They give us a slope and they give us a point, so we could go through, or we could write it in point slope form, right? However, well, let's think about it. The slope 0 would mean that it's totally flat, right? And we know that lines that are totally flat, you should be able to write it as y equals a number, because 0x would have no x, right? And we already know that it passes through the coordinate 0, negative 10. As a matter of fact, if we think about, like, let's not just jump right into point slope form because they give us a point and they give us a slope. This point right here, if you think about that, what is that point really on the graph? It's the y-intercept, right? If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're down here, that is your b value. So they did give us a slope, they did give us a b value of negative 10, so we could write it straight direct into y equals mx plus b, y equals 0x minus 10. And of course you don't need a 0x. You could leave it, I'll give you the credit, but you don't need that 0x because 0 of anything is 0, it's not there. There are no x's, there are 0 x's. So the best equation would be y equals negative 10. So this line passes right through that y-intercept of negative 10. It is totally flat because the slope is 0. Any totally flat line, anything that has a slope 0 is just going to be y equals a number. And just for kicks here, for funsies, any line that's vertical is not going to be y equals a number. It's going to be x equals a number, just to let you know from Algebra 1. Moving on, number 13. So let's walk through this. Number 13, the slope is negative 2/3, and they do give us a point, x1, y1. So let's go for point slope form. There's my point slope form equation. Y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. When you use it, just leave them blank and then plug in your values. y1 is negative 8. The m value is negative 2/3. The x value is 6. So if I ask you for point slope form, this would be your equation. This would be your answer. But if I ask you for slope-intercept, which I will ask you for both on the quiz Friday, you'd have to get rid of the parentheses by distributing. So if you distribute negative 2/3 times x, that is negative 2/3 x. And when you multiply a fraction times a number, you could put that number over 1. Let me do that in blue. And then you could multiply the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. So 2 times 6 is 12, and 3 times 1 is 3. So you'd have a 12 over 3, Let me just jot that down so people could see it. 12 over 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And of course, a negative times a negative is a positive. So that would be a positive 4 at the very end. The equal sign comes down. Y plus 8 comes down. We need to get rid of that 8. So we have y equals negative 2/3 x minus 4 as a final equation in slope-intercept form. Number 14 is a little more fun because it says parallel. So indirectly, what are they giving us?
Slope.
The slope. What is our slope? 4, the same exact slope as the line that they give us right there. So our slope is 4. And what else do they give us?
B.
The b value. The b value is your y-intercept, and they really do give us a y-intercept of negative 6. And the instructions say write it in slope-intercept form, so this is probably the easiest type of question you're going to get. Y equals mx plus b. Ta-da! Done. You have the m, you have the b, plug it all into y equals mx plus b. Number 15. They give us a slope. And they also give us indirectly a coordinate. They don't give us the b value. That's not the y-intercept, it's the x-intercept. So what coordinate do they actually give us indirectly by telling us the x-intercept is negative 1? The coordinate negative 1 comma 0, right? So if you think about the graph, negative 1, we know our line crosses right here. Slope of 1/6, so from there it rises 1, runs 6, so it's a line like this that crosses right through there. But the location of this point is negative 1, 0. So now that we have the point and the slope, let's use point-slope form. And of course, plug in by leaving those blank spots. The y1 value is 0, the m value is 1/6, and the x1 value is negative 1. Change the minus to plus plus. So you don't want those parentheses. So you could distribute that 1/6. 1/6 times x is 1/6 x. 1/6 times 1 is the same thing, 1/6. Bring down the equal sign, bring down the y. Bless you. And that's it. Jump into number 16. Okay, they tell us, and again, the instructions are write your equation in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. But on the quiz itself, I might ask you for point-slope form. All right, so pay attention to the instructions on the quiz. Right here on number 16, they tell us that our line is perpendicular to this line, and it passes through this point. So I know that they give us a point, x1, y1, and I also know that indirectly they give us the what? Slope, right? What is our slope? It's negative 1/3. Again, the word perpendicular means that our slope is going to be the opposite reciprocal of this slope. Okay? So if this m value is 3, technically 3 over 1, the opposite value, which would mean that it's negative, and the reciprocal, that would mean that you flip it, so it would become 1 over 3. So m is negative 1/3. And we already said that this guy right here is our point. So they give us a point, they indirectly gave us a slope, we might as well use point-slope form. So there's my point-slope form. When you use it, I recommend, like I've been repeating myself, leave blank spots, and then it's safe to plug in your values. Your y1 value is negative 1, your m value is negative 1/3, and your x1 value is positive 6. All you have to do is change the minus to plus plus. So if I asked you to write it in point-slope form, you'd be done. But on the instructions here, it says to write it in slope-intercept. So let's get rid of those parentheses because we don't want parentheses. We just want y equals mx plus b. So we're going to distribute that negative 1/3 times x. That'll give me a negative 1/3 x. And then negative 1/3 times 6. Again, if you're confused about multiplying numbers with fractions, put the number over 1. That way you have two fractions. Multiply the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. So negative 1 times 6, or 6, can't even speak right now, sorry. 1 times 6 is 6, and 3 times 1 is 3. So you're going to have a 6 over 3, which is 2. 6 divided by 3 is really 2. And of course, a negative times a negative is a positive. So we need a plus sign right here. Let's bring down everything else, the equal sign, the y plus 1. Final step would be to get rid of that plus 1 by subtracting 1 and subtracting 1. Final slope-intercept form equation is y equals negative 1/3 x plus 1. That's my slope-intercept form equation. Moving on to 17. Number 17, it says that our line is going to be parallel to this line. So indirectly, they're telling us the slope. What's our slope? That's right, 2/3. And it says it has an x-intercept at 9. So they're not giving us the b value. I mean, on some questions, I will say y-intercept is 9, and you'd have the b equals 9, you'd be done, y equals mx plus b. But it's x-intercept, so indirectly, they're giving you a coordinate. So if you think about the xy plane, you go to the location of 9 on the x-axis. What is that actual coordinate? What is that actual location? 9, 0. That's right. So they give us a point. We know the slope. We'll be able to write it in point slope form. And of course, we're going to plug it in by rewriting the whole thing with blank spots. The y1 value is 0. The m value is 2/3. The x1 value is 9. And since we want to rewrite it in slope-intercept form, not point slope form, we're going to distribute that fraction 2/3. It's pretty easy to do. 2/3 times x is 2/3 x. 2/3 times 9. If you're confused, put that 9 over 1 and multiply the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. So 2 times 9 is 18. 3 times 1 is 3. So you really have 18 over 3. And 18 divided by 3 really is 6. Now, the question is it positive or negative? A positive times a negative is a negative. So that's going to be a minus sign right there. And the equal sign comes down. And y take away 0 right here is simply y. I mean, taking away 0 doesn't change anything. So this is your slope-intercept form equation. Y equals 2/3 x minus 6. Jumping to number 18. So our line has the point -8, -7, and it's going to be perpendicular to the graph of y equals 4x minus 3. So indirectly, they're telling us that our slope is what? -1/4. Again, perpendicular means opposite reciprocal slopes. So if you don't, or if you want to make it look a little nicer, put the 4 over 1 and say, okay, perpendicular tells me I need to change the sign and flip the fraction. So my slope will be a -1/4. And that's all we need from this equation. I don't ever have to look at this equation again. I already got the slope. I already got what I needed. I already have my point. Let's go to point slope form again. There it is. The y1 value is -7. The m value is -1/4. And the x value, x1 value is -8. Don't forget to change those minus to plus. And that's your point slope form equation. If I ask for point slope form on the instructions on the quiz Friday, you leave it like that. If they ask you to switch it to slope intercept, you distribute, which is pretty easy. -1/4 times x is -1/4 x. -1/4 times +8. Put the 8 over 1 if you want, and you will end up with a 1 times 8 and a 4 times 1. So 1 times 8 is 8, 4 times 1 is 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So I have a 2 right here, and a negative times a positive is going to be a negative. So it should be a minus sign right there. And we still have the equal sign. We still have y plus 7. Final step would be to get rid of that 7 by subtracting 7 and subtracting 7. So we'd end up with y equaling, bring down the -1/4 x, and -2 take away 7 is -9. And that's our slope-intercept form equation. If they would have asked for point slope, you would stop up here. But if they asked for slope-intercept, you go down to this. The word problem at the end. Okay, so we need to create an equation. And the equation is going to be in slope-intercept form. Okay, slope is the rate of change. So the surface of Grand Lake is at an elevation of 648 feet. During the current drought, the water level is dropping at a rate of 3 inches per day. If this trend continues, write an equation that gives the elevation in feet of the surface of Grand Lake after X days. Okay, so X is going to be days. So we're going to say we want Y equals mx plus b. So what would our slope be? How fast is it decreasing? 3 inches, right? Now, what was the original start? 648 feet. Exactly. So the b value is 648 feet, but our slope, you can't put -3 for slope because that's inches, and you have feet. So you can't have inches and feet both on the same equation. So let's change the inches to feet. So what would 3 inches actually be in terms of feet? What was that? 1/4 of a foot. Perfect. All right. So we know that a foot is 12 inches. So 3 of 12, I mean, if you wanted to think about that, the 3 of 12, you could reduce that. That would become 1/4. And that would be your actual slope, -3/12, which reduces down to -1/4. So we have y equals -1/4 times the amount of days that go by plus the original elevation of the lake, which was 648 feet. Now everything's in feet. Now we have the final slope-intercept form equation representing that lake. So after 10 days, you'd multiply it through, and that would be your new elevation. After 100 days, multiply it through, that would be your new elevation. I'm done. Yes?